of you that don't know, um, I'm going to start interviewing a different person each week who lives with SMA. They're going to be all different ages and all different types of SMA. And my first one is Alyssa. And we have actually known each other since childhood. So a long time. And if you would like, while you're watching the video or after you watch the video, if you feel like donating to Cure SMA, you can just click on the link that I have shared on Facebook. And if you can donate any amount you would like is greatly appreciated. It goes to Cure SMA, which does a lot of research for all the different drugs that are out now. And it is a wonderful, wonderful organization. So like I said, today we have Alyssa. So I'm gonna let her introduce herself and tell about herself some.
All right. So yes, my name is Alyssa. I used to be Schwarzenberg. Now I'm Alyssa Belisi. Um, I'm from the Lake Charles area. Grew up in Sulphur, which is right next door to Lake Charles. And that's kind of how me and Jana got introduced because not only did we go to muscular dystrophy camp together as kids, but because we weren't that far apart geographically, our parents kind of spoke a lot about what it's like to have a daughter with SMA. So yeah, so I grew up Sulphur. I ended up moving to Lafayette when I got to college, and then almost like just over a year ago, I moved to the New Orleans area. Now I'm in Metairie. So just keep moving further and further east, and it's definitely super fun to kind of get to know new people, but definitely stressful moving. So
Yeah, for sure. I'm sure I can imagine all of everything you had to coordinate to make this work, for sure. So, yeah, like Alyssa said, we are both from Southwest Louisiana, and the area we live in is there are not very many people living with SMA. So when we were young, we were the only two in the area. So our parents connected with each other. I think through NDA actually is how I think they found out about each other. And so yeah, they connected and we got to meet each other, and then we went to NDA camp with each other for years until we both were too old to go anymore, unfortunately. So, but we have a lot of fun times together, and yeah. So tell us what you said you live in New Orleans and you're married. So tell them about like what type of SMA you have and when you were diagnosed.
so I was actually diagnosed around 2 years old. Typical of SMA patients. I wasn't quite meeting the motor milestones as one would typically expect. I was able to pull up, but I kind of walked weird when I finally kind of started trying to walk. I was like, I'm always to say that I would kind of waddle like a duck, and I never fully got the hang of it. Um, so
Mhm.
other things as well. It's just I had some difficulties rolling on cue and rolling when I was supposed to. So my parents took me to the doctor and said what's going on, and of course from then you get a whole battery of tests within the neurology field to figure it out, and eventually they said best we can expect is or best we can guess is that it's SMA. Back then there was very little knowledge about what that really meant as far as like types and everything. So they actually told my parents, she's not going to make it, she's going to die soon. Take her home, don't send her to school because she's really not going to be able to learn enough to make it matter. Just make her comfortable, and of course that was horrifying for my parents. And so,
Yeah.
um, thank God they did not listen. They, just kind of let me do kid things and realize, she's still got a lot of liveliness to her. So they put me in school, and I'm now 34 years old. Not only did I go to kindergarten and first grade like they never thought I would, but graduated high school, graduated undergrad, and got my master's. So, needless to say, there's a lot that can be learned just from having a little bit of optimism and faith in someone's life. So.
Yes, that is it's crazy that doctors said that to our parents, and now here we are. I'm 40 and you're 30, what, 30?
34.
34. Okay, I can't remember exactly. So that's amazing. And that's why I kind of wanted to start doing this when I heard about Stream Away SMA. Actually, I heard about it at the SMA conference I attended in June. It was the first one I've ever attended. And it was absolutely amazing because I got to meet people living with SMA who live all over the world, who have all different types. And I was able to meet children who were receiving one of the new drugs called Zolgensma. And it is actually a gene therapy that they get right after they are born, and these kids are pretty much asymptomatic. It's amazing. They're walking, they're running, they're dancing. So I got to see this for the first time in my life at 40 years old, and it was absolutely amazing because it's just amazing to think that what doctors told our parents when we were little to what they have done now is just crazy. But yeah, so and that's why I wanted to do this too, to educate people, because I learned afterwards I was talking to people about the conference, and when I would tell them about this, they had no idea. They had no idea that this drug was out there for these children, and they had no idea that there are people that are almost 60 years old that are still living with SMA. They were amazed by that. So that's why I wanted to start this so people can see and know all, about the different types of SMA. So yeah, so I am a type 2 as well. Like Alyssa, I actually never walked. I was able to pull up, but I never was able to walk. And my parents knew something was wrong. And the doctors kept telling them I was a lazy baby. And my parents were like, no, we have two other kids. We know this is not lazy. And they finally just kept insisting and insisting and taking me to all different hospitals. And they finally diagnosed me. And now, thankfully, parents don't have to do that
Yeah.
because newborn screening has been passed. Thankfully, I'm pretty sure it's in all the states now, isn't it? I think,
I
Alyssa, do you know?
don't know for sure, but it wouldn't surprise me.
I think they said it is. I'm pretty sure it is. But I know Louisiana for sure, and I know we were one of the last states to get it, which thank God we did. And so now they know when the baby's born with SMA. And like I said, they can inject the Zolgensma into the child, and hopefully they're going, to be asymptomatic. So the different types, there's type 1, which is they cannot really do um a lot of the motor skills that type 2 can do. They have less head control. A lot of them cannot sit unsupported. Some of them cannot eat. They have feeding tubes. Some have traits, but very few now, especially with all the new equipment out there, with BiPAP and machines and stuff, non-invasive ventilators. And then type 2 is like me and Alyssa, we have head control, we can sit, we have some limited use of our arms, but some with our arms, and but we cannot walk. And then type 3 is they can walk and, do things with their arms and everything normally. They're just a little weaker than a normal person. And I actually have a friend who is in her 40s and she is still walking with type 3, which is amazing. She is actually receiving another drug called Spinraza. And that's another thing we'll discuss. So, are you on any treatment right now, Alyssa, or no?
So right now I am not. I did try two treatments. The first one that I tried, I'm actually going to go over second, but the second one I tried was the oral by mouth medication, which kind of is amazing. That they even was able to figure that out. But that one's called Evrysdi, and I did take that for a while, but there was some side effects that was just causing some issues, and I decided that specifically for me, the benefits of taking it did not outweigh those side effects, so I stopped. Now, the first one I took was Spinraza, which, for those of you that don't know, that is a medication that is directly injected into the spinal cord. Now, for most people with SMA, that is type 2, type 1, we are kind of part of SMA is that you get scoliosis, and it can easily get severe enough so that it impairs your breathing further than what's already impaired. So Jenna and I both, we've had surgery to have a rod fused into our spine. So
Mhm.
there's no real way to access the spinal cord through a traditional like epidural, which because of that, they have something called an intrathecal injection, which is when you get the medication injected into your spinal cord via this area, and it's kind of in your neck, but it's kind of at the base of your skull, kind of behind your ear. And so that's kind of where they had to inject both of us for our use of Spinraza. And I used it for quite a while, and I did see benefits, honestly. Um, but because of the nature of the administration, whenever we have these rods, a couple different things happened with me. One time, some of the numbing agent that they inject first somehow spilled over and caused like half of my body to go numb for a while, and then my arm continued to kind of have limited sensation for a few months. So it was alarming. It wasn't that bad. So I kind of just said, well, it's fine. It's just temporary. It's fine. Well, then another time later, what happened was really odd, actually. I was completely fine during the process and the day after, but the second day after, in the afternoon, I remember I was actually in the middle of a conversation with a contractor to do some remodeling, and I had to excuse myself to go throw up out of the blue, which I never do. Um,
Yeah.
and I just remember thinking that was weird. And an hour or so went by, and I said something just feels weird. And I called my parents and said, "Look, I don't know what's going on, but do you think I should go to the urgent care just to see? Something feels wrong. I can't quite describe it." And my dad's kind of always been kind of blunt. He's like, "I mean, I guess if you want to go, go." And so
Yeah.
I ended up, but my stepmom was hearing the call as well, and she said, Alyssa never complains that she doesn't feel good. She's like, I'm gonna get stuff together just in case we need to make a trip, because at the time I was living in Lafayette, which is about an hour and a half to 2 hours away from my parents in
Mm-hmm.
the Charles area, and um, I got ready, went to an urgent care, and by the time I got to the urgent care, I was vomiting pretty profusely. By the time I got back to the doctor, my back was having severe pain. I was having heart palpitations, everything terrible. um, and before I could even see the actual doctor, they took my symptoms down and my temperature. Told the doctor, and I overheard him saying, "Tell her to go to the hospital." And so we immediately got in my car. My caregiver at the time, oh my gosh, her name is Caroline. She's an angel, but I'm sure I scared her to death. She drove me. It was about a 10 to 15-minute drive to the hospital, and in that short time, I was passing out. I was barely really coherent to answer questions, and we got to the hospital, and my back's hurting to the point where I'm having to lean my chair back. I can't sit up, and we have no idea why. And I've been at that point, I've been vomiting so much, I was severely dehydrated. They finally checked me into the hospital at like 6 in the morning. This is like 6 or 7 in the evening. I burst when this all started, but they had to wait for a bed.
Wow. Yeah.
So I'm passing out, and I basically am telling my caregiver, call my dad, and just bits and pieces trying to tell her what to do while trying to maintain some sort of consciousness. And they, thank goodness, they were already on their way over. So then my parents ended up getting to the hospital and was able to help, with the doctors telling them more of my history. But it's just the funniest thing because they never did fully tell us like what exactly happened, because my white blood cell count was super high. There was no actual infection to be found, though. They were giving me antibiotics that weren't doing anything. So they didn't know what was going on. And all my levels, I was going into acidosis, and it was just not great. I ended up being in the hospital for about a week, very limited consciousness most of the time. Um,
That's so
until,
crazy.
yeah, it was pretty scary at the time,
Yeah.
for my parents especially. Um, but my sister, who's actually now, she's a pediatric neurologist herself. She ended up telling us later, whenever I had mentioned to her that they never fully figured it out what was going on. They just kind of fixed me and sent me home. She said, "Wait, they never told you what caused it?" I'm like, "No." And she said, "I'm pretty sure what happened was that the administration from the drug um, just irritated and inflamed your spinal cord, and it kind of tricked it into thinking that you had meningitis." So it was kind of this really weird concoction of symptoms. And I mean, granted, like, I might be taking the words out of her mouth, so if I get it wrong, I apologize, Danielle. That's her name.
Yeah.
um, but something to that effect, where basically my body was kind of going haywire just because of the administration process. So after that, I decided, maybe this isn't the medication for me, because after being, essentially bedridden for a week or even longer once I got home,
Mm-hmm.
I really did lose a lot of the gains, plus some, that I
Mm-hmm.
was making. So I didn't feel like it was a good thing to risk that potentially every time I got a dose. So
Yeah. Yeah, I completely understand. Now, when you were on Spinraza, did you notice? Was it helping? Did you notice anything? Was it helping?
yes, I actually did notice that it was helpful. I felt like I could just do a little bit more with my arms, and actually I was in physical therapy, at the time, and they had a really cool system. It's called like I forgot what it's called, but they basically called it a cage, where they have these bungee cords that you can attach to like a belt and different things, and then attach to the cage, so that they were
Mhm.
able to actually let me partially stand and support some of my own weight, which is amazing. I haven't done that since I was a young kid. So I actually did find it was helpful. I was able to sit unassisted for much longer, so it's definitely a great drug. It's just
Mhm.
for me specifically, my body did not like that administration.
Yes, yes. And I learned that too at the conference this year that they are actually coming out with a different way to administer it. They're going to do some ports on people who the port will go, directly to your spinal fluid. So it's they don't have to inject, they can just use the port and inject the medicine, and you don't have to worry about all the if there leaks or blood patches or any of that stuff you do with a spinal injection, which is awesome.
I think
Um,
I think too
so
it's something that needs to maybe be said sometimes is that even though these are wonderful, wonderful drugs and great things that we're all excited for, I think it's easy to forget the terrifying aspects of trying new drugs that people don't know a lot about.
no,
Um,
oh yes, yes. If you remember, I think you and I were some of the first in our area, at least, to receive it back in 2017 when it first came out. And the doctor that did ours, thankfully, he was a very nice man, and he was good at always asking like, "Is it painful? Do you need more lidocaine?"
oh,
Which
right. That's something I don't know if most people know, but these injections we're talking about, it's like a 5-inch needle, right? Or maybe even more. And
yes,
you're awake the entire time. You
yes, yes, you are. You're fully awake, and I mean, they do give you lidocaine, thankfully, so we don't feel it. But I mean, you can feel a little pressure, but not nothing terrible.
well, and
Unless
was like, if you sneeze or something during the process, that could paralyze you.
I know that's the worst part because you're thinking to yourself, I cannot move. I cannot. Not that we can move a lot, but we
But
can.
it only takes a little bit.
I know, and it's like, and then that makes it even worse because you're like thinking about it and just laying there. I joke with the nurses all the time. I'm like, y'all need to put like a TV in here or something so we can like focus on during the process of it.
Because they're
But
literally, for those who don't know, they're literally about 3 or 4 people in there. One's the one injecting, the other ones are literally holding our skulls so that we do not move a muscle and just asking us, can you still breathe? Are you good? So it's
yes,
crazy.
yes, and the person that was holding our head, literally, our life was in their hands because they had to adjust their head perfectly for the doctor to inject. And if he accidentally injected in the wrong spot, that could be very bad news for us. And so thankfully they were pretty awesome at what they do. And we were lucky to have it, like Alyssa was saying, we when we first got it, they were having to give it to us in our neck. They called it a cervical injection, which it was actually behind our ear, kind of like below your earlobe. It was a lot higher up than I thought, but anyway, so now our doctor that was doing this, he actually had a brain tumor and he passed away within like 4 months, which was terrible because we all loved him. And he was the only one that would do this procedure. And we were in Baton Rouge at Lady of the Lake, and he was the only, they're called an interventional radiologist. And he was the only one that agreed to do this because it is such a risky thing that a lot of other radiologists don't want to do it. So after he passed away, they hired a new doctor, and he's a younger doctor, and he said he didn't feel comfortable doing the cervical either. But he said he could do the people who refused, he could still inject them. But what he does is, so I'm still receiving it now every 4 months now after I'm finished with my loading doses. And so when I go, they lay me on my side, and he actually injects the needle like through my side in my lower back into my spine. So he can go kind of like around the rods, I guess you could say. And actually, I kind of like this way better. Um, I was a little worried because I was so used to the other way. And so I didn't really know what to expect the first time. But whenever we had it cervical, I don't know about you, Alyssa, but sometimes I would feel like I would have a brain freeze. Would
Oh,
you?
so I don't think I ever got that sensation. I think for me it was definitely some change in sensation, but I don't know about brain freeze.
Brain freeze, yeah. It was just weird. It felt for a minute that like all the medicine was like going straight in my head. It was I don't know, it was a weird feeling, but they said that is normal to feel that like during this process. But yeah, so I actually don't mind the new way, and thankfully the doctor is very nice and very willing to still continue this for us because there are not a lot in this area that will do it. So, like, I have to travel 3 hours to the hospital to receive it every 4 months. And, um, yes, I haven't noticed a lot of changes yet. But I am only on my fifth dose. So, I'm hoping maybe in the future I will, but mainly for older patients. Unfortunately, we're considered older now. Me and Elizabeth, and they say it just mostly holds us from progressing more. And so if it does that, I'm happy about that too. If we can still do the abilities we have now. So and there's also another drug that is oral that you can take orally. And I tried that one during COVID because I did not want to go into the hospital to receive Spinraza during that time, but it did not seem to give me the boost of energy and things I feel like Spinraza did. So once all the pandemic and everything settled down, I decided to go back to Spinraza. So did you ever take a Resdialis or no? I don't remember.
Yeah, that's the one I mentioned first. That's the one I
Okay.
did try, but for me, I didn't see as much benefit compared to the side effects I was getting. So
Yeah. And that's the thing, a lot of people have side effects with it. But then some people I've talked to and they don't. So it's like the same with Spinraza too. Some people have it, some people don't. It just all depends on your body which one works for you or not for you. So yeah, but it's amazing that we're almost 40 years old and finally there are drugs out there.
yeah.
I think that there was never anything at all. So tell us about your married life. You've been married for over a year now, which is crazy. So how does that life transition?
So um, you know, my now husband and I we started dating in 2017, and
Mhm.
so he has two children from a prior marriage, and so we knew regardless we wanted to take it slow, But he also lived at the time in the New Orleans area, and I was in the Lafayette area, which, for those of you that don't know, that's about 2 to 2.5 hours away. So we were also long distance. So again, especially with someone like us who we are we are generally more vulnerable than the average person. So obviously I don't want to like put all my eggs in a basket of some psychopath I met online. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
because we actually did meet on a dating site. We met on Catholic Match, um, which and yeah, you would hope that that's a better option than some, but you never
Mhm.
know.
Yeah, you never know. Yeah.
So, but yeah, so we dated until we had a long engagement first of all. So we got married though in 2023 in the summer, and so it's been honestly it's been pretty great. There was of course some struggle at first, just trying to move two full households of stuff into another place. And then, of course, we're adjusting to I'm now a mother of two part time, a 10 and well, at the time it was 10 and 12, but 11 and 13-year-old now.
Yes.
So, and they were great. They're great kids. They really do love me. I love them. But there's always going to be a little bit of adjustment because there's different expectations, and there's a woman in the house now, all that good stuff. But it's been great. The only thing I will say, which I don't think people talk about that much because it's kind of awkward to talk about, is the fact that like as disabled women or disabled people in general, the expectation that we're never going to date, we're never going to get married, we never want to have kids.
Mm.
We don't even have friends half the time. People think, and so
Mhm.
we have a full social life, guys. That's one thing I always want to make sure people know. I can't tell you how many times I've been to the grocery store with a caregiver, and people automatically assume, or even if it's just a friend of mine, because a lot of the times my caregivers were actually close friends of mine. But whenever people see us, they automatically assume I'm their daughter, I'm their sister. We're never just friends.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yes. Yes, I get that too. And then I hate when they'll automatically look at the person you're with because they think that you can't talk.
Oh,
Or speak for yourself.
yeah, it's funny because and look, I don't blame anyone for not knowing. People don't know unless you've encountered it.
Yeah.
But they'll ask me what grade are you in. I'm like I'm in my graduate program at
Yeah.
you know. Um,
Yes.
so
Yeah.
it's just kind of funny and stuff that people just kind of need to be aware that like we are normal people, y'all. um,
Yes.
but and I say that not just the average person needs to know this, but policymakers need to know this. Politicians, all these things, because one of the most stressful things about getting married was not actually getting married. It was what is going to happen with my health care, with Medicaid, with these waiver programs, which is what provides our caregivers. Because there's a lot of rules that were, I don't know, I feel like they were made in the dark ages or something where most of the time disabled people die when they're 12. You know,
Yeah.
they don't account
Yeah.
for dating married life. There's a lot of restrictions on any sort of income or property ownerships, and it's just not realistic for the ability to survive today. So,
No. And we definitely, like we said last week when we did this, we can definitely have a whole hour of just this topic. It, it raises my blood pressure every time because it's so aggravating. Like they want to help us, the state wants to help, like assist us in college and assist us, but then once we're out of college, they all of a sudden tell you, damn, you only can make this much money or you're going to lose your caregivers. Well, all of us with a college degree, the amount of money the limit is, all of the jobs with degrees are mostly over the limit.
Yeah.
So it's so annoying because then,
It's
you
very
know, you have to figure out what you can do that you love to stay under the limit. It's crazy,
yeah,
because we should be able to do what we want, you know?
it's very demotivating. I think is the good word for this because what's the point in the hard work it takes to get a degree, and then to
Yes.
be told you're gonna get really like really in a tight spot if you use your degree. um, but also in hand in hand with some of the stuff we're talking about, um, I'm a part of like a social group specifically about women with SMA who are mothers, like biological mothers. Something else that I know I've seen a lot and sometimes experienced myself is like when we talk about wanting to be a mother, whether it's from family or friends, you know, the fear of what's going to happen to you if you try to do that kicks in, and it can be very sad, you know, because most people when they say that, people are met with excitement and saying congratulations they get pregnant or something. Whereas a lot of times for women with disabilities, when they say that, it's met with apprehension and sometimes even anger or just fear. So that's definitely something to be aware of.
Yes, and tell them as your experience as being married, not only is there a limit, but they also count your spouse's income.
Yes, you know, and it's well, yeah. Going back to the limits, like it's interesting because you can have assets, which is like the amount of money you possess, can be up to a certain amount, but the income you can have per year is way less than that asset limit, and so it doesn't really match up because you'll never be able to meet the asset limit with the income so low. So it's almost like you gave us a bone just to take it away. um, but
Mm,
you know, I think just making everyone understand that all we want is to live a typical life and
yes.
not be threatened or judged for wanting it.
Yes. And what we're talking about when we say limits, it's for people who don't know. It's for us to have caregivers to help us with our everyday needs because obviously if we don't have that, we can't function in life. So, we can't have jobs, we can't have family, we can't the list goes on if we don't have those people to be there for us to help us along the way. So yes, it's a crazy thing. So we would love to change that eventually. So maybe one day this we'll do a interview and just on that with different people. But like Alyssa said, yes, people with SMA get married, go to college. We both went to college. Alyssa has her master's, and we just live, normal lives. We just have to um do things different sometimes and um work our a lot of us live by schedules because it does take us a lot longer to do like normal activities that only take you 10 minutes may take us like 30 minutes, so we have to kind of plan out everything and
And I think something else that is worth mentioning too is not
Mhm.
just our stuff, but not on top of the stuff that takes us longer to do regular stuff. We have extra stuff that we have to do to make sure we can do those normal things. Like we have to make sure we can hire caregivers, make their schedules line up to our lives somehow, and
Yeah,
then
somehow. Yeah.
somehow, right? So it's actually people don't realize because I hear so many times I've heard people be like, "Man, I'm jealous of you. All you have to do is tell people what to do," and I'm like, "If you only knew how hard my life was." Um,
Exactly, exactly. Because honestly, like you are having 24-hour care. and I had 24-hour care when I lived on my own as well. I mean, it's like your own business because you're constantly figuring out schedules. You're constantly, when one of them has to be off, you have to make sure one of the other ones can fill in, and you have to, make sure the caregivers are happy too, and you're happy, and you're constantly interviewing. And it's a full time job.
Once you get, like, for example, for me, now that I'm married with like our own little family life, there's also that like awkwardness of like having an entirely separate entity inside of your family life at all times. Which, I mean, don't get me wrong, I get it and I don't mind, but there is something to be said about considering that as a caregiver or as someone that doesn't have to live with a disability. Like, just imagine if someone knew every aspect of your being, you know?
Yes, I know. That's the thing because, people say all the time, like, well, they don't really have to be your friend. I'm like, well, no, they don't have to be your friend, but they're only in your life every day.
Right, you don't want a personality you can't stand.
I know, no, because then you're miserable, they're miserable. It's a mess. And me and Alyssa also have in common because we have a program that's called self direction. So we don't use an agency. We find our own people and we kind of run our own business, kind of.
Yeah,
Uh,
really, we have an employer identification number and everything. It's
yes,
because you
yes,
also you have to make sure all of the payrolls are submitted on time. We don't do the taxes or anything, but we submit them on time. We have to make sure the documentation is completed for the state. You know, it is kind of it's a lot, but
yes, yes. The reason I quit using an agency, Alyssa can tell us too. They pay our caregivers a lot less money. It's like minimum wage. And I rather with this program that we have, we can give all of the money we're allotted straight to our caregiver instead of giving it to an agency because like when I was with an agency, just find people anyway, because most of the people they found either could not do the job physically or we just did not match up personality wise. So I was like, well, I might as well go to self direction and I'd rather give all my caregivers like the full amount. What was your reason for switching to self direction?
yeah. So I mean, similar to you, like the times we did have to use an agency to find people that was not great quality of candidates. I'll just say it like that.
Yeah.
And you know, whenever like me, when you have someone that applied at an agency, they're not applying specifically to be in your life. They're applying for a job with a million other clients. So there's
Yes.
not that same sort of commitment, I think. Because if they don't show up for work, well, it's the agency's problem. They'll fill in. So
Yes.
whenever you don't show up for work, whenever we hire you, there is only like a couple other people even around to potentially fill in, and it's just a different kind of commitment, and I think that's what we really need is a true commitment to
Yes.
be there. Now, granted, that doesn't mean it always works. There's still going to be those people that don't take it seriously, and that's happened to the rest of us. Uh,
Yes.
but being able to offer a higher wage has probably helped to reduce that so that people who want to do better for themselves by earning more can try to do that
Mhm.
for this job. So,
Mhm. Yes, I definitely agree. So tell us about your job. What is your job currently?
so currently I'm working as a licensed rehabilitation counselor.
Mhm.
For those of you that don't know, that is helping people with disabilities of any kind, whether it's mental health, physical, or cognitive. or medical conditions. Helping people with disabilities get the resources they need through whether it's education, training, or equipment, to be able to work. So, it's kind of interesting how I ended up here. I actually was originally trained in the traditional talk therapy counseling, like, how does that make you feel? People always joke with that. And so I was originally trained in that. And I did practice in the field or work in the field for a while. But we ran into a lot of issues. At the time when I graduated, there was not a lot of positions available for new grads that did not require going into client homes. Typically with the mental health rehab facilities, which means, generally more severe and usually lower socioeconomic status, which it's wonderful that there's programs that exist, but because of the diverse background and stuff, it often meant that I could not access their homes due to obviously not every home is going to be ADA compliant in the same way, but I would need it to be. So, I ended up switching kind of gears to the rehabilitation counseling because my undergraduate academic advisor who worked at the university I went to actually had his own private practice. And so I was able to get a job, through him with his private practice. And he is amazing. He's very flexible because he understands disabilities. So
Yes, that is awesome. And you work from home, right? Most, yeah.
yeah, I used to go to the offices because he works all over the state, but
Uh,
well, now my life's changed a lot and I live further away, so I
yeah,
do it now.
yeah, yeah. Well, that's one thing that COVID did for a lot of us too. Um, was a lot of virtual jobs, which is a lot easier for us because, like Alyssa said, some workplaces are not fully accessible. And even though they say they're accessible, they may not be like accessible enough for us, for our needs, what we need. So virtual jobs for us from home are awesome. That's awesome that you can do that from home. And we need more people in that field that, companies that try to help people with disabilities, they definitely need people with disabilities working for them so they understand it all.
Absolutely. I mean, there's tons of cool programs, but the problem is employers aren't aware of how
Y-
life really is for us.
Yes,
I know
yes.
the first job I had when I needed to use the restroom, um, I was literally having to be laid on the floor to 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 do so properly, and that's just not normal.
No, being in our own home's a lot easier for that reason, especially. So, well, that's awesome about your job. Okay, what hobbies are you doing now? I know you used to do a lot of art and you were amazing at it.
Um, yeah, definitely. I still have my art supplies. I'll break them out every now and then. But I learned those whenever you do a bunch of art, you have no more walls to put it on, and you're like, well, you know. um, so, but I do them for gifts and whatnot mostly now. But I also, I'm my family and I we're big into board games. Video games is something I played as a kid, but I haven't in a long time. But they're introducing it to me again, and the cool thing is for those of you who don't know, because I didn't know, the Nintendo Switches, the controllers are super small. They're like, an inch wide by like 3 or 4 inches long. Super great for tiny people like me with SMA. And on top of that, my stepsons have showed us that you're able to, like, if there's a button that someone can't push compared to another one, you can actually reset the way the controls work. So if you can push the A button, but you can't push the R button, they can swap their functions, which is kind of amazing.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I didn't know that either until you told me. And actually, I have my two nephews here. They're spending the week with us this week. And one is 9 and one is 10. And they love Nintendo and Oculus, all that stuff. So I was telling them last night, I'm like, my friend told me about this. You can, reprogram the controllers pretty much. And they were like, yeah, one of them knew all about it. So I may have to try that with them this week and try
Yeah.
playing a video game with them.
That's
So
all. Like stuff like that. It sounds like, at first people might think, why would you ever do that? But it makes it so that you can connect on a different level with people whenever you normally couldn't.
yeah, yeah, that's awesome. Well, what about do you have any other life hacks or assisted technology that make your life easier that you
Um, so, you know, I'm big on like smart home stuff.
uh-huh,
I have a couple of Alexas that we have hooked up to like smart bulbs, and at
uh-huh.
one point I had a smart thermostat because, if you think about someone, especially when I was living alone, like if I got hot, I could just put the air lower and I didn't have to bother waking someone up that night to do it. I could just
Yeah,
tell it to do it and it would do it. So, same thing with the security system can be hooked up to it. Just a lot of really cool things that it can work with. And the other thing is, which I mentioned to you before, was I have an Apple TV, and similar to the Switch remotes, the Apple TV remote is super small. The
mhm,
top portion is touch activated, and the buttons are really easy to press, and I can actually hold it pretty much in one hand, which most remotes I can barely get to work because you have to tilt it right to get the infrared sensor and everything. But yeah,
yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I love Apple products. A lot of them have the accessibility features, and a lot of people always ask me, "Why do you like Apple?" I'm like, "I like it because it has all the accessibility, features." I know on mine, it's hard for me to use like a regular size keyboard, so if you go to the accessibility feature in the Apple computer, you can have like an on-screen keyboard that
mm-hmm.
it's time consuming because you have to use your mouse to like type things out, but it works. And so
Yeah, on my phone, because I have an Apple phone as well, like iPhone. I can't actually push the physical buttons on the sides to turn it on and off or to adjust the volume. And there's actually a thing you can set in your settings so that there's a little circle that appears on your screen. If you tap it, it gives you options to click things on the screen that normally is controlled with the side buttons. So that's super helpful.
yes, yes, I know. That's one reason why I've been using Apple almost my whole life. So that's one reason I love it. Now, I do have to say, they do need to improve the watch for accessibility features because I tried getting one for this past Christmas and I cannot reach my wrist when it's on with my other hand to control it. And so I thought you could do it with your voice, like you can do your phone,
Mhm.
but it would not work with the voice. Like you could like open things like different apps and stuff with your voice, but then there was no way to close it. So
Uh,
they were just stuck in whatever app you opened, and I even went to Baton Rouge and went to the Apple store, and I was like, I know there's some way to do this. Like, you can do it on the phone and all the other. And this tech worked with me forever, and he couldn't do it either. And he's like, I'm just sorry, they just haven't improved it enough yet. So hopefully the new one they come out with will hopefully be better. I hope for that reason. So Well, one last thing I want to ask you. I know we could talk all day, but although people will be here us talk all day. But what is the one thing you would like to advocate the most for the SMA community?
I probably answered this slightly different last time we talked, but I guess if it's only gonna be one, I'm gonna kind of find a loophole there. I'm gonna say, uh, I think making sure that people realize that we want normalcy, which includes, for example, the ability to travel normally, like with accessible aircrafts, which I know is in the works. Um,
Yes.
and that
Yes.
would also include getting married without punishment, essentially, for all these limitations about income and assets and whatnot once you're married. And then normalcy, and then includes whenever we want to become parents, not being looked down on, I guess would be a good way to say, or people not being so afraid that we're not allowed to make our own choices.
Mhm. Yes, those are very, very good topics. I love that. And for those of you that are friends with me on Facebook, you can look at my pictures from the conference. And like Alyssa had said, the accessible aircraft, it is amazing. They actually let us try it out at the conference. I mean, it was just for a show. It wasn't the actual the airplane, but still, it was pretty cool. Like the seat is gonna flip up so we can actually drive on to the airplanes in our own wheelchairs, which is amazing because we're comfortable in our own. Um, like, other people are always like, well, just bring another wheelchair to travel. I'm like, no, it's not that easy because our wheelchairs are adapted just for us.
Now,
So,
if we have to try to talk the insurance companies into paying, two $50,000 chairs, that's fine.
yes, exactly. And once we put those chairs on the planes, we never know how they're coming back to us, if they're broken, if they're, because I did learn this too. They actually, when they put them in their cargo where the luggage and everything is, they actually turn them on their sides. So, and then they're probably just throwing suitcases, which nowadays a lot of those suitcases are hard. And so they don't know how much they weigh, and they just throw them on there and it breaks our wheelchairs, which is very annoying because then wherever we land, we can't use our wheelchair. So then we gotta spend vacation time trying to get it fixed. And
Oh, I can say personally, at least twice now, I've had my wheelchair damaged from flying, which is why I try never to do it. But I also don't love having to drive for or ride in a car for 12 hours as opposed to two.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. So I don't know why it's taken this long for the airline to do this, but it's going to be amazing. We're hoping it's going to be in 2025, is what they kind of told us at the conference. So that's what we're hoping for. And a care or friend or whoever's with us can actually sit. They're going to have a seat next to us, a regular seat they can sit in. So we don't have to be by ourselves, like in the front or whatever. And then if somebody in the wheelchair is not on that flight, they can actually flip the seat down and just use it as like a regular seat for a regular person. So they won't be losing out on anything. So I don't know why it took all this time to figure this out, but I'm just glad that they finally did figure it out. And hopefully we can both travel soon and that'll be a lot of fun.
Yes.
So, well, thank you so much for doing this interview. And I'm so sorry we had to do it a second time.
Oh
But
no.
this time it's definitely recorded and on the page. So for those of you who are not able to watch live, you should be able to go back a few hours later and watch it when you have time. And like I said, for those of you who feel like you would like to donate to this awesome organization, you can just click the link, and any donation is definitely appreciated. So, well, thank you so much, Alyssa, and I'm sure we will definitely see her again soon. We will do another one down the road. So, thank you so much.
All right, no problem. And hopefully this helps, just bring some awareness to some of the issues we have to think about, every day. So,
Yes, yes, that is definitely our goal. That is why I wanted to do this, to advocate and educate people on spinal muscular atrophy. So until next week, we will have another person interviewing. I'm not sure yet who it will be, so it will be a surprise for all of you. But it will be so much fun to meet all different people. Some I might be talking to for the first time, so that'll be exciting too. So anyway, well, thanks again, and we'll see you later.
all right, bye-bye.
Bye.